Hello, Samiran. So I think we'll have Samiran say something, and we'll have, there are other people there. I can see people from Bhutan who would probably want to comment, and we'll probably have Himadri is also joining. So I would also, Himadri, hello. So we'll have Himadri and Samiran say something, and we can have a discussion there. There are other people who are familiar with the species, who've been photographing, who've been monitoring. And also there's Dr. Haim from Nepal. And it was a species which was also found in Nepal. And I think we'll just have a few discussions and comments. And if Mahesh is able to join, and he will join, otherwise I think we'll have to conclude it just this way. I'm just so sorry. I don't know why he just couldn't get into Zoom. So Samiran, if you are ready, and Himadri, I know I did write to you all to say something that you all would be called to comment, but you'll have to start now. So Samiran, are you there?
Are you getting my voice?
Yes. Samiran, can you just tell the group about the species, your work?
First of all, hello everyone. Good evening. I'm not that prepared enough to speak in this forum right now, because I was told to just speak for around 5 minutes. But since Dr. Mahesh couldn't join yet, so I will just speak about my work that I'm doing. So since from 2018 to 19, I've mainly worked in Meha Wildlife Sanctuary in eastern Arunachal Pradesh. Like, I have few friends who are doing a lot of birding in those areas, and they have spoken a lot about that they have seen the white-bellied heron in those areas. So accordingly, I went there. I surveyed there for almost 1 year, but unfortunately we couldn't track the bird. But we have got some secondary information, and there's a possibility that we might find that species if we do some extensive work mainly in the remote areas. So presently I'm pursuing PhD in the Department of Forestry in Mizoram University. So my work will be focused on white-bellied in Namdapha and Kamlang. I've chosen Namdapha because, as we know, that Namdapha is the only area where we have the residential population, and Kamlang, as we know, like last year we have the sighting of the bird in a camera trap. So I'm looking forward to that after the COVID is over. And yes, and before that I have worked on this ATRI collaborated project in Manas Biosphere Reserve, where we got a sighting in Phipsu Wildlife Sanctuary, very close to Phipsu Wildlife Sanctuary in Kochugao area in Manas Biosphere Reserve. And possibly dead bird came from Bhutan, but there's no other record after that. So maybe if we do some thorough survey in the remote areas of Manas, we might get some sightings. And I haven't prepared any material actually. If I were supposed to present, I could have prepared some resource and I could have shown you. But this is all I can remember right now. So Dr. Sarala, anything that I can speak, like anything that any idea that you want to share with me, which I can explain maybe?
So maybe you can tell the group what, because other than Namdapha and Kamlang, we have not been able to record the bird in Arunachal Pradesh, other than in Assam. But you were saying some, your experience of what the presence of the bird in the Mehau region or in the Dibang area. So you could probably tell us about that. So
Yeah.
what do you think is the problem there, and what are the threats to there? And do you feel it is there in that area? Because right now we only know that the bird in Arunachal Pradesh has been recorded from Namdapha and Kamlang. Kamlang is also adjacent to Namdapha. Okay. Yes.
So when, as you know, the Mehao is falls in the eastern Arunachal Pradesh, and it's an area which is mainly dominated by the Idumishimi tribe. So working with the tribe is really it was a good experience, and actually the people are very they follow animism, and they have a lot of taboos which are related to various species, and they don't kill tigers, they don't kill many of the species like squirrels because they consider them as their brothers. So in a way, like some of the species are protected directly through the customs and traditions. When I was working there, like the whole of Dibang Valley is very remote, and it was really very difficult to survey those areas, mainly because of those fast-flowing rivers. Mainly, it's really impossible to work in the rainy season. Uh, so there's a place like if we go upwards from Mehao Village Sanctuary, there's a place called Hunli, and there's a Jumuni from the where the Itu rivers come up. And some people told me like they have killed that bird in the past. They have identified it. And I haven't surveyed the Upper Dibang Valley, so I don't know much about Upper Dibang Valley. But in the lower, like we have a lot of threats in Mehao area because the area is like frequently hunted by the fringe communities. Hunting is very, very, very common.
Yes.
So actually hunting is very common there. And even if it's fishing, use explosives in some of the, and the area is what do you call this? It's under threat. Like road construction is happening, as we know. Like Dibang Dam is coming up. It's a mega dam that is being built there. I've been to the dam site, and that area looks very pristine to me. And nobody actually ventures upstreams from those areas. So there's a possibility that we might see the species if we can go upwards. I couldn't do it because of time issue and lack of resources. But maybe if we do some thorough survey, we may get some positive result. So this was my experience. I've done some awareness camp programs in the French areas, and they have said like they have seen the bird, but I haven't encountered a bird in the field. Actually, we need to have some long-term studies. Like my work was only for 1 year, so it was not enough. We need to do some multi-season surveys.
Okay.
Dr. Ashish John was mentioning that the bird is there in Burma, Myanmar. So can you give us a few lines on what are your observations from the Myanmar side of for this bird?
Okay, yeah, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, so when I went to area called Putao, northern Myanmar, extreme northern Myanmar, and we walked in about 10 days, and then they have one of the highest peaks over there, and in the stream, they have recorded nesting birds. They were a pair. I photographed 10 ibis bills over there, and they said that there was basically what they showed me were two birds flying off very far off, and they said that's the white-bellied heron, but I couldn't identify it. But yes, that's the area just across Arunachal Pradesh, and then there's one more area south called the Hukong Valley. We have got records of white-bellied heron over there also. So, I have no idea about the counts, but that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. John.
So I think what I would want to say is this is a species which is very rare, and it is also a species which is critically endangered. And it's also, wherever it is found in very, very small numbers, even in Bhutan. And what the heron specialist group says, or the IUCN Red Data books, the Red Data book says, is that, the numbers are so little, the numbers are so small that long-term survival of the species is in question. And looking at the habitat of the bird, it's declining. We've been working on the species in Bhutan. We worked with the Samiran's organizations, Nature's Foster, and we've been working in Arunachal Pradesh in Namdapha, and also we've just started a project of surveying the Kamlang Tiger Reserve for the species. And in Namdapha also, I think Mahesh and Himadri, they studied the bird in certain areas of Namdapha, but there are many areas in Namdapha itself also which hasn't been surveyed for the species. It's also a species which one of the main threats is knowing very little about the species, because some of the areas that Samiran was talking about, or even Kamlang for that matter, I experienced, or in Namdapha, these areas are very difficult areas. These areas are, and the species, and also there is, especially it's got a very small window of survey, once it's April, it's impossible to go into their habitats because the river and all, they rise, and then there's movement is restricted. So it's a difficult bird to study, but it's amazing because this bird was also present. They say it was distributed from Nepal, and there are records saying Sikkim. And I know I have read a paper in the Journal of Darjeeling Natural History Society that the bird was last seen in Tista in 1952. So in all these areas, right across in the west from Nepal, it's been extirpated. And the only area in India it is now found is in Assam. It comes in, but I think we suspect it may not be a residential population of the species. It's probably because of the habitats, what we can see of the habitats in Assam. And there are also reports of the birds being found a little bit more south, but all of us, a lot of experts said that before that there was some stormy weather, so they may have, just lost their way and gotten there, and it was also a juvenile. So really no residential populations there also, and then the Namdapha population is the only hope, and also the Arunachal, wherever we may find it. So I think one of the most important things for this is surveying the birds, and it's not possible for a researcher to do this. And that's why, the role of bird watchers in documenting even these kind of critically endangered species becomes very, very important, because you are the people who really go into all these nooks and corners of each and of these places, and you will be the ones who will be able to, cite these. A lot of sightings actually, even in Namdapha, every year comes in from bird watchers, because there is no comprehensive, strategic, or a systematic monitoring program like they have in Bhutan, where RSPN, they have a program, Royal Society for Protection of Nature, they have a program, they have staff, and there is a census of the black-necked crane and the white-bellied heron every year, and the numbers are put out nicely in their website. So we have no such comprehensive programs. A few researchers are working, a few individuals are working. Therefore, the role of bird watchers for the species becomes all the more important. With that, I think if people, Sagar, would you want to say something? Sagar Gosavi.
Hello everyone. Hi Sarla. Thanks for invite, and I was really looking forward to hear it from Mahesh sir. But yes, I want to highlight one thing that I'm studying this, not studying, I'm photographing this species from past more than 10 years now. I mean, 2009 was the first time when I saw white-bellied heron. I photographed white-bellied heron. Since then, I photograph white-bellied heron every year. So in 2019 January, one of the tribals there, they told us that they killed one such bird. So we could find only one bird there in that area. So usually we used to find at least 3 to 4 birds, but in January 2019 we found only one bird, and it was alone. So that was quite disheartening. But I would like to highlight here that is there any way we can highlight this species and the status of the species? It is more critical than a tiger right now in our country.
Thank you, Sagar, about that. If people, I think people can just join the discussion if people want to comment, say something.
Which area was Sagar referring to when he said the 4 birds he has seen before?
Namdafa, I think.
In Namdafa itself. Okay.
Yes, sir. Namdafa, this is the area which comes between 27 mile to your farm base. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, let me just see. Somebody was asking about the nest. I think it's also in 2000, I don't know which year it was, I think 14, probably 2014. For the first time, I think in Namdafa, again, Dr. Mahesh and his student were able to document the nest of the white-bellied heron. And it was for the first time, I think, in India that they were able to do this. But they were monitoring it, but I think that year they had a big storm in that area, in Arunachal Pradesh area. And when they went to monitor it the next time, the nests were destroyed and the birds were not there. So they do nest in Namdafa, and probably because in Bhutan they nest in pine, I think in Chirpine, and in Namdafa, I think it was in a terminalia tree. So that was the first documentation also. And I think from what a lot of people have been saying, like Tajum, who's also a research officer of Namdafa Tiger Reserve, I was hoping he would join because he would also be able to say. They're facing a lot of difficulties in the sense it's got a lot of threat, and threats are in terms of also a lot of people actually. There are villages around there. And the last I heard from them, they were saying is now the road from Miao to Vijayanagar is also going to be constructed. So once that road is constructed, so there's, when we were there this year, I think this year when we were there, lot of construction work was going on along that road. So there is more threat to the species, even in the area where we know the species is present, that is in Namdafa. And in other places, we don't even know, maybe we may lose them without even knowing that they were there. So this is like Sagar has been saying, a very critically endangered species. And I think in terms of like critical, in its degree of criticalness, it's even critical than a tiger. But then we know that, these species, they don't get too much of attention like the other large charismatic species. So I would again urge bird watchers to, whenever they find it, we are trying to build up a database of distribution. So people to let us know that, they found it here, they found it there. And we want to keep continuing to do what we need to do.
Good evening, everyone. Dr. Sarala, can I speak for a few minutes?
Yes.
I'm Indra from Bhutan.
Yes,
I work for the Royal Society.
Indra, yes. Please speak.
It's very unfortunate. I was actually only prepared to listen to Dr. Mahesh, but it's very unfortunate he couldn't make. So maybe I can briefly
introduce yourself, Indra.
Okay, my name is Indra Acharya. Currently I'm looking after the White-bellied Heron Conservation Project at the Royal Society for the Protection of Nature, RSPN. And thank you, Dr. Sarala, you mentioned about the RSPN earlier. So I recently completed my master's, and I didn't get time to fully work on the white-bellied heron, but my thesis was on the nesting habitat and the nesting behavior of the white-bellied heron. So I recently published my paper. It is in the Bird Conservation International Journal. And now I'm like full-time working on the white-bellied heron recovery program at RSPN. To briefly give you an update about the population in Bhutan, we did the annual population survey from 27th of February to 2nd of March for the 5 days. And we cited 27 individuals for this year. So it is last year we cited 25, so this year 27. So it is increased by 2. However, during in 2019, we also had 5 new juveniles. So theoretically, the population was supposed to be around 30 plus, but we could cite only 27. So we don't know what happened to other birds, like maybe juveniles died or some, maybe they migrated to other part of, maybe to India, or maybe we could not encounter. So that's the population status. For this year, we again discovered 3 nests, 3 active nests, I mean. And from 3 active nests, unfortunately, 1 failed. The chick hatched, but I think I'm still studying the behavior, but I think there is a parental infanticide in that. Like we were observing and parent was literally killing the chicks. So 1 nest failed. And from the 2 nests, again, 4 juveniles just recently fledged last week. So again, like this year, we are expecting around 31 to 32 birds in Bhutan, but we don't know how much we'll cite again in the next population survey. So that's the status of nest in Bhutan. And I was quite excited. I wrote a message asking about the nest in Namdapha. Like there was a record in 2015, and like Dr. Mahesh, he told the nest failed, but I was just expecting if there is any update of the new nest sightings or anything. To briefly discuss about the threats in Bhutan, the biggest threat that now we are facing is because of the disturbance, like the human disturbance particularly, like other than the hydropower dams and the diversion of the riverside developmental activities. Disturbance we have observed, and also you might have seen some of the photographs where the rafting companies, they have taken when the raft goes by in the feeding habitat, they are disturbing herons, and one of the behavior of the heron is they take a very long time, up to 3 to 6 hours to catch a fish. And when there is a high frequency of rafting companies, like this raft goes by every half an hour, then sometimes we have observed heron can't feed even a single fish in a whole day. So those kinds of disturbances is also impacting the herons in some part of Bhutan, particularly in Punakha, like where I think many of you might have seen the white-bellied heron before. There used to be up to 8 birds before now, but there are only 1 or 2 currently. So it is particularly that area is very much disturbed. So that is impacting the white-bellied heron. But now we are observing the more herons in lower basins in Bhutan, particularly bordering to India, and like at altitude between 200 to around 700 to 800 meters. And recently, I think there was a sighting in Manas, Indian site of Manas. We already have in Bhutan site of Manas, but there was also in Indian site of Manas. So probably the birds are flying around that area. They're going to Indian site, and maybe sometime the lower number of population that we get in Bhutan is maybe because of the birds at that time maybe were migrating towards the Indian side, which we could not cover during the population survey. So those are the other things. And Dr. Sarala, you mentioned about the white-bellied heron nesting on the chirpine. It was true before, but it is no more. Since 2018, we have cited all the nests. In fact, all nests now are on broadleaf species. Some are even on push or climber, like, which is quite strange, but they are now more into, I mean, based on what we have seen, they are more into broadleaf and like maybe any other species which are less disturbed in a safer habitat. And also the other thing we have observed is there is a high rate of juvenile mortality. Like every year we we find 1 or 2 dead herons, and also after they fledge from the nest, we are not able to track them. So we don't know, like, if they are dying, like how successful they are after fledging from the nest. So these are some of the challenges. I'm sorry I spoke for a long time, so I think I'll stop here. Thank you.
Yeah, but I think the amazing work that RSPN is doing, comprehensively, systematically, y'all are doing. But I think also y'all are doing some ex-situ work, no? So I think it's
Yes.
nice to mention even the ex-situ work, because y'all are prepared, like, in case there's in-situ failure, then you still have your population.
Ex-situ, right. Thank you for reminding that. Then other thing that we have been doing is we have been trying to assess the genetic diversity of the bird. Before we did with the Arnaik in Guwahati. Now we are also doing with Natural History Museum in Japan. So we want to, like, explore the genetic diversity of the white-bellied heron. And the other thing, I think maybe if we can get the genetic sample from Indian side, that would be a great contribution, because we have quite now collected almost 50 plus samples from Bhutan, but that covers only the Bhutanese sample. So we don't know, like, what is the genetic differences that we have in Indian side. So that would be a great contribution. So recently, I think we are still doing that, and maybe in a couple of months, the paper on the genetic diversity will be available for readers. So that is the genetic that we are doing, and based on the current understanding, the genetic diversity is very, very low. It's extremely low. I think it's a very much thing that we should be concerned about. And the other thing that the doctor mentioned is about the captive breeding program. The resolution came after the 2015 White-bellied Heron International meeting that we have in Bhutan. And after that, the RSPN has been working on the establishment of the captive breeding center in Bhutan. Yet it took a long time, but finally the center is almost ready. We were supposed to start by this breeding season. Unfortunately, because of the COVID, many things has to be canceled. We could not establish the lab. We could not import the materials that we needed for the lab. We could not invite experts to help us start the program. So we could not start this season, but we are hopeful, like, from next breeding season, we will be able to have at least a founder population in the center. So our plan is, first of all, to have a safe gene pool in the ex-situ. Anything happens to the natural population, the population in the wild, it might go extinct. So to prevent that, we want to have a safe gene pool in the kind of the captive breeding center. So that is the first thing. The second thing is we want to breed the bird and, like, improve the population. I mean, to establish a good founder population. And I think to have to ensure a genetic diversity, we need to have at least, I mean, that is what we have been recommended, to have at least 50 to 60 birds in the center. So once we have a good population and once we establish the breeding procedure, our plan is to release the bird back into the safer habitats and ultimately revive the wild population. So the captive breeding program that we are having is well on track. We are hopeful, like, from the coming breeding season, we'll be able to establish the founder population and maybe see if we can revive the population through captive breeding program. Thank you, Sarala.
Thank you, Indra, for that. I think Tajum has joined us. Tajum, are you there? Hello? Tajum? Tajum is the research officer from Namdapha Tiger Reserve. And I would want him to comment on the status of the white-bellied heron in Namdapha Tiger Reserve and the threats that the species faces. Tajum?
I think we might have lost Tajum's connection.
He's there. I can see him.
Hi, hello.
Yes. Okay, Tajum, can you, so just to inform you, Mahesh couldn't join because some technical problem. Yeah. So we are just having some, people are just commenting and giving their input. So just now we just finished one from Indra from Bhutan. So since your Namdafa Tiger Reserve, it's well known for its white-bellied heron, besides other things. So we would want to hear from you about, the status of the species, the threats that the species faces, and what more do we have to do for the species, because Sagar is also here, and we've been saying, we have to do something for the species, which is even more critical than a tiger, actually. Over to you, Tajam.
Yeah. Namdafa, good evening all. Namdafa, it's a home to the white-bellied heron in India. Right now, as per Dr. Maheshwaran, as there was a study on it. So right now, it's the confirmed species. The confirmed number is just around 7 individuals. So not much studies have been carried out apart from Dr. Mahesh. So conservation status of the white-bellied heron, it's still like we need to do a lot, especially in Namdafa, for Namdafa. Then again, we need to put a lot more effort in our research activities for the conservation of these species. It was till now it was only found. It was presumed found only in Namdafa. Then again, recently a camera trapping photo from Kamlang Tiger Reserve. It was revealed a new location for the species. So we are happy. Apart from Namdafa, we are getting the species from a newer place. So we are happy regarding that. Then again, lot more studies, as I said, like lot more studies has to be done. There was the recent record of nesting from Namdafa, which was first from India. Then again, since the observation could not be carried out due to like damage of the nesting site by the by storm. So we need to look out on this aspect also, like especially when you consider the critical criticality of the bird, if you say. So this is all, Sarla.
And what do you think are some of the threats in Namdafa for the birds right now, Tajam?
Threats, I would say, like that area, it's called farm base. So that area, usually there are lots of tourists flocking down, especially during the winter time. That could be a threat for the bird because we are camping right near the habitat sometimes, habitat of the bird. So camping areas, they might cause some disturbances since the bird is a very shy kind of bird. So it might cause some disturbances. Then again, accidental hunting might be a cause of disturbance for the bird. So till now, like I haven't my experience like I haven't found a single record of the bird being hunted down. Then again, like the tourism could be a disturbance for the place till date.
Yeah. Okay, there are some questions. So Ashish John, he writes, I think he works for WCS in Myanmar. He writes, likely migrated to Myanmar. Putao is close to Vijayanagar in Arunachal. Putao township is linked to Hokabarazi mountain in Myanmar. So I think, Mr. Ashish, even there are two colleagues from WCS who work with us. I mean, we are in the same group. So they've been reporting, but I don't think, has WCS done any recent surveys? I don't know about that. But I don't know if they are migrating from Vijayanagar. Have we been able, Tajam, do we know if in the Vijayanagar area, if there are white-bellied herons?
Like Mondal, he can explain, but there, as for findings by them, like there are no records from Vijayanagar till date. Maybe like that's what I was like saying. We need more studies on this bird from Namdafa. Actually, their migratory pattern, then their reproduction pattern, whatever you call. So we need more studies on this. Till date, there are no records from Namdafa, but or from Vijayanagar area. Then again, like the entire riverbed, it goes up to Vijayanagar. So it is possible. Like if there's a proper study, we might look for breeding ground also for the bird.
Okay. So there's another question, Bhakti Sharma Koirala. Can anyone mention the cause for the decline in population of the species? Is it the anthropogenic activity or the predators are eating them? Indra, would you be able to answer that? Is Indra there? Samiran, would you be able to answer that? Because...
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Actually, yeah, as you said, like anthropogenic pressure is one of the main thing that is the biggest threat. And the problem with Indian context is like that the area of Namdafa or any other area where we find the white-bellied, even in Manas area, all the fringe areas have communities who indulge in hunting. So there is always a threat from the communities. And yes, like I said, like some dam construction that is happening in Arunachal, in Dibang Valley, the road construction that is happening in Namdafa, all those are threats because it has been found in studies, I think, in Bhutan and in other areas like that, that human interference is one of the major reasons for the decline. And that's why they prefer to have they prefer to occur in areas where there are no humans, especially in Indian context. But in Bhutan, like since Bhutanese people are very because of their religious beliefs, they don't kill or hunt white-bellied or any other closely related species. So white-bellied prefer to stay close to humans in Bhutan. But in Indian context, that is totally different. So I do think like it's not the predator. I think it's mainly because of the human interferences.
Yeah, but also at the same time, there is so little known about the species. We don't know what predates the species.
Yeah.
So in the natural predator, we don't know about what the natural predator of the species. I don't know if they know it in Bhutan, but at least in India, I don't think we have had such long-term studies and studies like the satellite collaring studies that you all have had and all those videos that you all have got. So I don't think we have all that.
But according to second information that we have got in Manas, like people do hunt. So there's always a chances of white-bellied being killed in the fringe areas.
Yes. No, I'm saying about predation. We don't know about predation.
Yeah.
So there's another question.
But I have a question, Sharda.
Yes. Who's that?
This is Bishop Rio.
Okay.
As far as the Indian part, apart from Arunachal is concerned, wherever it used to occur historically, I think there is a vast change in the landscape. And this habitat loss for the bird, because whenever I have seen the bird, it generally prefers a very secluded riverbed, which is going to be very wide. It doesn't, I haven't seen it in rivers which are quite narrow hilly streams. It prefers the wider valleys. And disturbance, as Samiran has said, disturbance is one of the things that they generally avoid. This is a very shy bird. So I think wherever there was a suitable habitat in North Bengal, if you even consider the Tista, the total value of the Tista has changed over the years.
Yes.
And the amount of disturbance, because 1952, how many vehicles would have been plying from Siliguri to Gangtok along that valley? And right now you have more than thousands of vehicles plying on a single day. So habitat disturbance and the habitat loss is also one of the bigger things for the local extinction of the species from this part of India.
Yes, you're right, Bishop Priya. So in this part of the world where it was found, North Bengal or Birik, I mean, there's been a drastic change. And also there's literature saying it was in Sikkim, so which would definitely mean the Tista. But then Tista has changed from dams to sand mining to, anything, boulder mining to everything else that has changed so much, the highway coming up and all that, and so many settlements coming up. So I think it has completely gone from here. But I don't know, I wish Mahesh was here because he would have been able to say, because throughout his survey in North Bengal, he was still saying that there could be, one or two areas which we still need to, completely survey and say with confidence that, yes, this bird is, it's locally extinct from here.
What I could, Sarala, what I could make out from the mention of the white-bellied heron on the Tista, it was probably around the this where the Rambi Hydel project now is. It was mentioned that it was on the other side. That means it was on the eastern side of the river, and the observer never found it on the western side of the river.
Yes. So there's another question. I think it's for people in Bhutan, Mr. Balaram. This particular species used to be sighted more frequently during my school winter vacation before, but maybe due to hydroproject dam construction, I could rarely see the white-bellied heron along the Unasangchu, Wangdi, Bhutan. What are the major steps incorporated to protect this critically endangered species? I think this Indra has more or less said, because they are monitoring these birds very, very systematically, and it's been very long. And they also, the other one that they're doing is, I think they also had these areas where they would, these artificial fishing, feeding areas. Also, they had built that up. They're also doing XC2, and they're doing genetic work. Actually, Bhutan has been doing a very comprehensive work on the species. So, while we haven't even been able to figure out where else is it present, even in Namdapha, other than those 3-4 sites that are there. The other question that is there is, what is the total population in XC2 and where are they? Only in Bhutan or elsewhere? In C2 specific conservation activities, example, protection of habitat, new sites declared for WBH. This is asked by Dr. Hemsagar Baral. I think the Bhutanese people will be able to answer this more. And I think XC2, where are they? Yeah, only in Bhutan right now, the XC2 population. They are planning to have a captive breeding center. Indra, would you come in and answer this, please? Is Indra there? Or anyone from Bhutan? Is Indra there? I don't know whether he's there. So Himadri has also joined us.
Lost Indra.
Himadri? Hello, Himadri?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So Himadri.
Am I audible?
Yes. Okay, just a little. Okay. Dr. Himadri is the person who has done his PhD on the white-bellied heron. So he was Dr. Mahesh's student. So Himadri, Dr. Mahesh couldn't join because of some technical difficulties. So maybe you should be, I hope you.
Yeah, actually I was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, actually I was talking to sir. So he was having some technical difficulties to join. So yeah,
you don't
I
have
will
a presentation, do you? You have a presentation?
No, actually I don't have any because I haven't made
any. Just take us through your.
Yeah, so I have just make 5-minute speech, so I will not take much of a time. Yeah. So good evening to all of you. I hope Mashan sir will be here because actually it's under SAT's experience, guidance and expert supervision and continuous support that I have completed my PhD on white-bellied heron. I would like to thank Sarla ma'am for inviting me to share some of my experiences with all of you. last year when we were returning from White-bellied Heron working group meeting from Guwahati, one of my respected seniors asked me about my favorite moment while walking on this species in Namdapa. To be honest, I was spoiled for choice at this question, and all these moments started crowded in my mind, which I think I will cherish forever. So today I will take this opportunity to share some of the treasures with you. It was 2013 when I first came to Namdapa for this White-bellied Heron project headed by Merchant sir. Initially, we could rarely see this bird. Sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah. Initially, we could rarely see this bird foraging at the particular site, at any particular site rather. At that time, the common sight for us was that of a large bird with a gray colored body and a white belly was flying at a distance of 200 meters or more. Now, for a bird, obviously, it is very easy to fly from one side to another, but the smooth flight of the bird would take us to walk over the large boulders for at least 500 meters to reach the spot from where we would where we would be able to watch the bird properly. After covering such a difficult terrain on foot, when we would be able to finally reach the spot from where we would like to watch the bird used to fly away. So after some point of time, we made an agreement, myself and the White-bellied Heron, in which I used to observe the bird at a distance of 150 to 200 meter distance, and the bird also did not fly away, at least for a while. Later on one day while I was bathing in the river, I took a dip in the water. When I came out, I saw my long-legged friend standing on the opposite side of the river. The distance was hardly 30 meters. It took 3 months for the distance between me and the bird to get reduced from 300 meters to 30 meters. So at that moment, initially we kept staring at each other. Then after some point of time, it just ignored me and concentrated in its foraging business. However, I couldn't just take away my eyes from it and kept staring at it. It made a few foraging attempts, but was not successful. But I was successful on that day. The same day, my conviction about the conservation of the bird grew stronger, since not only because of its low global population size, but also because of its excessive shyness towards human presence, a trait that the birds would continue to inherit in their future generation. Another memorable moment came on March 2014, when one White-bellied Heron was giving stick to another White-bellied Heron. I was studying the behavior of this bird for around 4 to 5 months before this. I have not seen any of such behavior before this. Then I saw the bird was with stick in its bill fly away. It was soon joined by the donor bird. Then to my utter surprise, I saw both of them flying to a tree where they were constructing the nest. I informed the same incident to my sir. Like me, he was also in disbelief at first. Then he saw the event as well. We both concluded the fact that yes, we had recorded the first nesting event of these rare species in India. These were some of the instances which will always keep the memories of Namdapa alive in my heart forever. These experiences have made me realize how all of us would love to have such experience again and again in our lives. And for that, it is extremely necessary that we work for the welfare of the bird in order to conserve this species. Thank you.
Thank you, Imadri. That was, yeah. Thank you, Imadri, for that. So there may be other questions for you. If there are questions, I'm going to direct it to you. So I'll go on to the next question. That is, we have about 15 minutes. Number of white-bellied heron in the world. So for this, I think according to the BirdLife International, they have a species page. They say about 250 species worldwide, and no population is more than 50 birds. So therefore, it's again the viability of such a population is questionable. So okay. So this is asked by Shetu Kumar Khale. there is, Mr. Dinesh has asked, is in addition to anthropogenic causes, is there any particular effect on the species, I guess? No? Yeah, in addition to, so I think anthropogenic, a lot of researchers and people worked on the white-bellied heron have said that anthropogenic pressure is one of the main things because they get disturbed, and poaching. So all these are related to human, I mean, affected by human actions. So even habitat loss, or your own habitat being changed or degrading. So these are very specialist species. So they would only be in a particular area if a particular habitat is suitable for them. And it's not like a generalist species where they can adjust, adapt, and stay even if there is disturbance, like you see in many of the birds. So for a white-bellied heron, it's a habitat specialist. It's very rare. It's very shy, elusive. So I think anthropogenic causes have a lot of effect.
From my personal experience in Bhutan, I've seen one or two white-bellied herons in Namdapha, but I've been to Bhutan a few times. And first time we saw the bird was in front of the Punakha Zong, and it was right in front of the Zong. You could see it from the highway. Then, as rafting started, the whole population started moving away from that place. Then the rafting started on the Phochu River also. And I think I was the first one who got the photograph of the rafters getting off the boat and actually approaching the bird on foot. And that caused a huge mayhem in Bhutan, sporting and tourism people. And they're pretty pissed off because when the photograph was circulated in Birds of Bhutan group in Facebook, there was a huge hue and cry. But rafting still goes on. And from my experience of this, what I've realized, these birds, when we first started going, there were 3 or 4 birds on that river. Now there's only one. And this bird waits until the last draft goes. And it more or less knows when the last draft is going to leave. And then it comes down to forage. So until the rafting goes on, this bird sits on a branch and waits all day long. So around 5 o'clock, the last draft disappears from that place, and then the bird comes down. We have almost timed it now. We just go there 15 minutes to 4:45. We stand there exactly 5 o'clock. The bird lands, and the last draft has gone. So anthropogenic problem is the main problem for this bird, at least in the Bhutan side, especially on these tourist areas because of the rafting. So I'm sure there will be more people supporting me on this issue from Bhutan. Thank you.
No, even in Namdapha, no, as Rajum has been saying, most of the areas where the spots where the white-bellied heron is found, it's again frequented by tourists. So when we were there last time, also there were like hundreds, and the tourists, like tens and hundreds of tourists going into that area, loud, noisy ones. So they do get disturbed. And I think Himadri and all have a record saying that once they leave, they came back only after, I don't know how many days they were saying.
Yeah,
certain habitat. And when they were disturbed,
actually, when they leave on a particular site, from a particular site, they were, seen to come back around 2 or 3 days later, or maybe more.
So then,
because, and another thing I like to add that when we started this project, when we started working on this project, the number of tourists in Namdapha was not that much higher in comparison to the present situation. Nowadays, I haven't been there for around 3 years, but I was there in 2017. That was the last time. So during that time as well, the number of tourists was pretty much higher than the earlier times. And along with it, I like to add another cause as well. When I was in Namdapha studying on these birds, along with it, anthropogenic cause, there was another cause we have faced rather. That was in 2015, we also witnessed the second nest of this bird in Namdapha. What happened, we were quite determined to stay there as long as possible to observe the nesting activities of this bird. But it was in May 2015, there was a huge thunderstorm and the next day we have seen the entire nest fallen from the tree. So I'm not sure, but I think we can also add these to be another cause, because what we have found, there are two eggshells, one eggshell as well. We are not sure whether the baby was born or not, chick was born or not. So yeah,
Okay.
that was another thing we came across.
So there's another question that somebody wants to ask is there a captive breeding facility in India? No, there isn't. We have yet to do our in situ work, properly. We haven't been able to do that. I know nothing about, is there any suitable habitat in any part of Assam? Again, the part of Assam which is bordering Bhutan, because there is Manas, so some parts I think there are, like we were able to see, especially which adjoins Phipsu and many other towards the eastern side. But what we suspect is that they still don't reside over there. They come, forage, and then they go back for roosting, nesting, whatever it is, back to Bhutan, because many of the surveys that the nature and all have done, and when we've seen their report, they've said like there's a lot of disturbance, there's cattle grazing, there are these kutis or these cattle stations that people are there, they're going fishing far into those rivers up north in Manas. So I suspect they're not there residentially, but they are coming time to time to use the habitat on the inside. The predator of the species should be studied thoroughly in future, because in Bhutan we can see minimum anthropogenic pressure, but the species is declining. What can be the cause then? So would you want to comment on this, Indra?
Yes,
Okay.
I can briefly say like what we have been observing here. I think, sorry, I had some internet issues, so I could not listen to all, but I heard someone saying like, it is the anthropogenic pressure that is the biggest threat. And yes, I think it is the anthropogenic pressure. And I also saw that question about, there used to be a lot of white-bellied heron in Punakha and Wangdi area, and very less are seen today. And I think if you have been there now and then, you can see the difference, like how the area has changed over the time.
Yeah, could you mute your, somebody there was, Sujan, could you help muting?
So if we look at we have the detailed data about the Punakha and Wangdi, the entire Punasangchu Valley, about the population and the site in the occurrence record. And oh, sorry. And before 2009, until like from 2003 to 2009, the population was around 6 to 8 birds in that stretch of the river. And after 2009 to 10, the population drastically decreased, and now current population is less than 2 birds. And if you look at what happened in that area between that time, is the 2 major hydropower projects were started by end of 2009, and like from 2010, the construction work was in full swing. And though the construction work in the riverside did not start at that time, but there was like 3-fold increase in the human population in that area. So the riverside activities increased. Even there were like use of explosive to explode the rocks, or the construction work, the road construction, the bridge construction, and everything. So because of that, the population from that area has now migrated to the lower basin. That is why, like, as the population in the upper basin decreases, the population in the lower basin is on increase. And even the nesting sites before 2018 or 17, based on our knowledge, like all the nests were on the chirpine trees, and they were at the altitude like around 1200 to 1000 to 1200. But now they are nesting the current 2020. If you look at the 2020 nest, the one nest is at around 265 meters of altitude. So it's in entire different ecosystem now. So I think herons are like being pushed themselves from their native habitat. I mean, from the older habitats to a quite new habitats, particularly in Bhutan. And even they are adapting to nest in a different type of environment. And the threats, the natural predators, like what we have observed, although from just one nest, the small mammals like civets, even the martins, they are a major threat. Like particularly, like we have only around 2 to 3 nests, and based on the data that we get from the small population, civets and martins are the major threat because they even predate on eggs and they disturb. And once disturbed, the heron abandons the nest. So in one incident, we installed one of my friend who was studying the foraging behavior. He installed a camera trap, and in that we could clearly see a civet climbing on the heron's nest. So those are some of the natural threats, but I think more than natural threats, it is the human pressure that is driving the herons to extinction. And the other thing that we are observing is a decrease in the fish population, because we have been studying the feeding success frequency over the time, and we have observed like there is almost increase by 2 to 3 hours in feeding success. So heron takes like 2 to 3 hours to catch a fish, and that time has almost doubled now, which means the fish population in the rivers is decreasing very rapidly. So I think even the failure in nesting is also because of low feeding success, because many of the herons, they can't afford to breed when they don't have enough food. So I think the biggest challenge is now the anthropogenic pressure rather than the natural threat or natural pressure. Thank you.
Thank you, Indra. I think that's the last comment that I will take, because it's almost 9 o'clock now. And I think, so in conclusion, I would just want to say that I'm really thankful to the audience for being with us because of this technical problem. Dr. Mahesh couldn't come. His presentation would have been really interesting. Long years of work in Namdapha. But even then, I think it's a very nice discussion, and I'm glad that colleagues and people from Bhutan could join us and talk about the way they do things. I have a lot to learn from them, because despite the fact that they have all the charismatic species like the tiger, the elephant, or snow leopard, or red panda, they are working systematically and very comprehensively for the species, which is very rare and which is very, very critically endangered. For those of us in Bengal, I mean, and Nepal, I think Dr. Haim would agree with me. We've lost the species, probably. It's not there anymore. And we say this because the landscape has changed so much. The waterways have changed so much, and what we've turned our rivers into. I don't think the species is there anymore. For India, for the rest of India, Northeast India is the hope. Namdapha, Kamlang, they are our biggest and greatest hopes that the species still remains in this country, and we are still able to see the white-bellied heron, because we should not lose any species. And we also have, thankfully, we have very good habitat in Bhutan, because of which in Assam, we are still able to, record the species, and sometimes the species comes onto the Manas side and we are able to see it. So most of us who are today the audience of this webinar are not scientists. They're all bird watchers, very, very passionate, all of them. And they've been to many, many parts of this country where I don't think, at least I haven't been. Even in some areas in the hills where we haven't been, some of them have been. So I request all these bird watching fraternity, all our people who are really bird enthusiasts, please do look out for this species and let us know, please let us know when you find it, because every sighting is very, very important for this species. Every sighting is very, very important. So please do let us know, because once we know these areas, then we can do more comprehensive and systematic sampling and survey of these species. Thank you so much. Thank you for being with us. And good night and stay safe. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.